Good evening, Takahol. Good evening, Brazil. So as Elaine wisely said, we're connecting the world through the Takahol Library Zoom programs, which is amazing. I'm humbled by the opportunity and very happy to be able to share these classes with all of you. Thank you again, Takahol Library and the legislators for giving us the chance to be here tonight. And thank you all for coming back. Are you ready for another class? Yes, right. Today is our 5th class. So we went through the first 4 classes, which gave us a huge amount of knowledge on architecture. So if you missed those 4 classes, they are available through the Takahol Library YouTube channel, and they are recorded. It will be wonderful to have you already aboard those 4 classes. And today, our subject is quite unique. I'm very excited to be able to be here tonight sharing this with you. We're going to talk about corporate architecture, retail, and healthcare, which is very, very exciting. Will give us different eyes, will give us a new perspective when we go to an office space, when we visit our doctor's office, for example, or even when we go to store or we go grocery shopping. Are you ready for this? So let's go. Let's talk about corporate healthcare and retail design. Today we're going to share a few key design secrets. Yes, secrets behind what we see, behind what we experience wherever we go. Let's join us. Come aboard. Well, when we talk about commercial design, it's our own it's an own field of design, right? With unique concerns and practice. And these include corporate, of course, offices, for example, healthcare, retail, and many other facilities where commercial business is conducted. That would be a simplified definition on what commercial design is. It's a big field of design. And how does commercial design differ from other types of design, like residential, for example? At a first glance, you can say the basic processes followed in many types of architecture, they seem the same. Whether a project is commercial, residential, institutional, it tends to follow the same set of basic steps. What are these steps? Let's go. Starts with a site evaluation, then you do a design conception, right? You start dreaming about what you want to look in the future. Then you do a design finalization. You create the blueprint, then you go to the permit documentation and construction administration till the project is finally complete. That's basic to all types of architecture. But now I add here in yellow. That being said, there is still quite a difference in the details and considerations of commercial architecture. These unique aspects are what define commercial architecture or a commercial design as its own category. Let's review them closely today, everybody, specifically corporate, healthcare, and retail design surrounding all of us all the time. And if you've been with us for the last 4 weeks, this is a must. Bring your paper, 8.5 by 11, a notebook. Ideally is the graph paper, as you see here in the photo with the little squares. It gives you an idea of scale, which we went through already. You're welcome to watch that class. A flare felt tip black pen, paper mate, which you have in the photo as well. And why is that important? Because it gives you more freedom when you're sketching. Okay, so highlighter, pencil, eraser, ideally mechanical pencil so you don't have to run and sharp your pen all the time. But most importantly, you gotta have a curious mind. Okay, done? Let's go together. Bring your photo camera, can be your phone, and then you're welcome to take photos of anything that we're going to share here today. Let's start talking about corporate design. When we say corporate design and we look at this photo here on the left, many of us already saw something similar. Every now and then we can go to an office space and see someone working in a scenario similar to this, right? A door to close your private office, 2x2 ceilings like this, which is acoustical ceiling tile, light fixtures, which we call 2x2s, an ergonomic chair on wheels. Who would imagine what goes behind something that looks so simple like that? Well, a design for a corporate environment starts with observation. We observe the team's dynamic. And this bullet list here gives us a little bit of what it starts with. The best way to find the office design and layout that works for a business is to observe how this business works. What do I mean by that? We start asking questions such as, how does the team use their current space? Is it an open office? Is it a closed office? Do they need to be together? Do you need silence? And what are the bottlenecks in traffic flow? So do we need more space, less space? Do you need to have carts going through this dynamic space? No. So all these questions are coming into place. What are the obstacles in collaboration? For example, do you get together in a conference room when you don't have enough chairs? Or do you need more storage because you have events and you don't have enough storage nearby? What works in the current office design and what doesn't work? What complaints about workspace does the team make on a regular basis? That's important. All of those things are taken in consideration. And as to this last question, what complaints you have, don't be afraid to ask your team directly what they want in an office space, because they are the ones using it every single day and will likely have some good suggestions on how to improve the design. That's key to understand what the basic dynamic is. Another photo here illustrating, for example, a conference room with a very interesting light fixture. Why would you think they would put a light fixture that changed lights? It probably, the answer is probably related to the type of business they have or the type of meetings they have. Another interesting conference room here. You see, in this case, you have a credenza that not necessarily saw. The other one, maybe they have a lot of materials they need to be stored. And all of these questions came into place. Now, let's observe an item number 2 that comes with a big importance when you're designing something corporate. I wonder if you were able to guess what is this space on the left? What corporate design is that? This is one of Google Office corporate spaces. And design with company culture in mind is key to make sure that your corporate space is amazing. With that said, I invite you from now on, every time you go into a corporate environment, look around and see if that number 1 was done, if you see the workflow is going well, they probably understood the dynamic of the team. And now, number 2, understand if the design was done with the culture of the company in mind. In other words, the business has its own unique company culture that differs from company culture of every other business. An effective office design will be able to recognize and most likely celebrate these distinctive differences in a manner that it's all your own, right? For example, if you go to Takaho, the Takaho juice bar, it has its own look because that's their culture. Or if you go to Spice Village where they sell Indian food, it's a whole complete environment. Or if you go to Swirl and Joy and all of these beautiful places we have in Takaho, they're all designed with their culture in mind. And these defining characteristics give the business personality and help attract and retain clients, vendors, partners, and top talent. Why not? Correct? An office design that reinforces your company culture can even amplify the team spirit within the business. Did you ever notice when you go to a store, for example, and that store is very vibrant? You have all of these sales representatives excited to tell you about the product. That's probably because the culture is in their minds speaking so loudly that they want to sell, they want to be part of that. To identify the company culture, I always suggest sit down with the team and define what that is. in words and with images. Why not? With colors like Google. Look at that. You probably have all the colors of the word Google in each one of the letters throughout the office space. The personality you want your business to convey must be connected to your design. Then design the office space accordingly, like magic. Look at that. Talk about having the company culture in mind. That's a perfect example. They think people should be enjoying themselves. Remember when we spoke about colors in that sofa? I'm going to go back. Let's see if I can go back. Oh, here we go. Look at all these colors. You see? We see the colors right here and the word Google. And check this out. You talk about culture, company culture. They not only have this slide in the middle of their break room, but they also have this non-real trees to ensure that people having a break in a space with no natural light. If you take a look in this picture right here, there's absolutely no window, but they made sure to put a picture of a farm in the back with lots of trees with fruits on it, and they created fall trees to make it look like they are in a farm, for example, tricking people's mind, because that's what they want to pass, the culture of the company on something that it's business, but it's also a place where you can enjoy yourself. And let's talk about number 3, which is a very, very important topic when we talk about corporate design. One size does not fit all. How many times did you hear that quote? One size fits all, right? So in this case, keep in mind, corporate design, one size does not fit all. Why? Because every business is different. In fact, every team within a business is different. You probably noticed that any place you go, if you have a studio, if you have a team, everybody has its own identity. They each function in their own unique way, which means what? That means that a one-size-fits-all approach to office design doesn't work in most cases. For example, let's talk about teams who work better when they have several hours of quiet time each day. Well, in that case, cubicles like we see here on our left-hand side or semi-private workplaces might serve best in this instance. You see here on the right, we have a photo where everybody is working together in what we can call base system, and then we have this glass partitions with semi-private offices, but people still see through. That's probably the basic need on how this team works. Or in this case here on the left, that's probably what this team requires, more quiet time. Sometimes people are making more phone calls, and that's what was driving the design. I am 100% sure the next time you take a trip to an office, it can be your own office or it can be someone else's office. You're going to look around and say, wow, now I understand. Whomever designed this was thinking well before defining the height of the partitions that divide my station, or why I have this file with 2 drawers instead of only 1 file, and so on and so forth, because it was dictated by the dynamic of each individual team and what kind of work you do. This is another space of an office that was designed for a specific kind of team, everybody with open office. Imagine if this is a call center, it would be a mess, right? A very tall ceiling, no, not even a single piece of furniture here to absorb sound, with the exception of the cushion above this pedestal file. Everything else bounces the sound right back. So this would not be ideal for a place where everybody will be talking or making some noise with whatever they are doing. This is ideal for quiet time and when people need to reach each other quickly. This is another example of that. And in this case, we don't have partitions at all. If you go back one photo, you see here we have some sort of privacy with these types of panels. And then when you go to this, there's absolutely nothing. And when you're designing an office space, just for curiosity, I want to tell you, And Swadish, the Takaho library director, might be able to tell you that and confirm this. When we were redoing parts of the Takaho library, we had to buy a new chair. And when we had to choose the new chair, we had to know, for example, what kind of floor we had below. These chairs, usually they are on casters, right? We have these wheels, and they have to be specified depending on what type of floor you have. In this case, we have carpet. So that's what we call wheels for soft floor. So they will run smoothly in any kind of carpet. And then on the right, you would be specifying wheels for what we call hard floor. So they would slide beautifully in hard surfaces. All right, so let's go now to our item number 4, still under corporate design, which talks about reimagine space allocation. Yes, past office design paradigms allocated space based on title. The president and vice president of the company, for example, they usually have the biggest office, correct? And then the senior sales staff had smaller offices. Let's put a pictorial where we imagine this situation. You walk into an office and you go to the president of the company office, and it's huge. The vice president is another huge office. Then you go to the senior sales staff, and it's smaller. And then the manager's office is yet smaller offices, and so on and so forth. And then you go down the ranks of employees. It goes to the newest member of the team who may have 6 to 8 square foot of workspace, as we say here on the text on the right. Why is that? That was back then. Things were designed depending on the title. In recent years, there was a big change of that because they realized that the higher the title, most amount of time was spent outside of the office, either in the company conference room or in shared spaces or going into someone else's office for meetings. So it was a tide in turning. Businesses are realizing that it's more effective to allocate space based on the time a person spends in the office and not their title. In fact, upper management may spend more time out of the office, as we said, than in. So their workspace is real estate that is basically being wasted the majority of the day. And you know how expensive this can be. So on the other end of the spectrum, just another example, an engineer often spends 80, 90, or even 100% of the day in the office working on various projects. They need not only a larger workspace than the salespeople who are out in the meeting 75% of the time, but they will also need surface space to probably review plans and more work surface to do what they gotta do. And here are 2 examples of big offices on the right and on the left, I'm sorry. So someone here in this space would probably require more silent environment for meetings and private conversations. Now that we went through corporate design, I would like to remind you, please keep writing your questions, your comments. We're gonna allow some time at the end to go through it, any questions you might have, any suggestions, and I'll also share my email address in case we want to go through it with more time. Okay, let's jump now to healthcare design. First photo, and I'll tell you, these are not my projects, but are very unique projects that I decided to bring to you tonight because it's a perfect example on things that bring us to a different dimension. So talking about different dimension, this is an ear, nose, and throat care center. You go to this places probably every now and then, if not ENT offices, but your primary care physician or any other healthcare center to check on your health. Ask yourself, how many times did you pay attention on the counter surface? Once? Never? Maybe twice? Well, let's uncover a few secrets of something like that. Most of the times in a healthcare center, it's very important to design thinking about how cleanable a space can be, how durable it can be, and most importantly, how safe it can be. So let's analyze for a moment this photo for safety. This was polished, the edge of it, and all of the exposed edges. If you look at it, it's almost rounded. It's what we call eased edge. Why is that? When you go to a doctor, you most likely want to make sure that you're not going to bump in a corner and get damaged or get hurt, right? So here we go. We have this counter surface, which we call transaction counter, and then it drops to what we call an ADA height, which is now mandatory in retail and healthcare facilities and other public environments. So people on a wheelchair with mobility challenges, they can easily come here to a height that is possible for them. And let's talk about durability. You notice how the base of this unit was recessed and in a different color, because probably someone is coming here often to mop this floor, and so on and so forth. Lighting is key. Now let's go to this plastic surgery environment. You notice the difference in terms of colors, in terms of the feeling you have. And that goes back a little bit to what we spoke about in corporate design, that you gotta have the design of anything with the culture in mind and ask what you do. So you see here, you're still creating durable items. You see the floor, hardly ever you're gonna see carpet in the exam rooms, for example. You gotta be able to clean. But sometimes you gotta bring also a little bit of hospitality to the place. Now, this is a vet center. Let's check together how things interestingly change when we see a situation where you need even more cleanability. Check this out. So this surface here, it goes all the way to the floor with a type of tile. This is probably ceramic tile. You see this base here is a type of vinyl that you can wash. The floor is already tiled that you can wash as well. And the walls have a chair rail in a much higher position. You see, this is the ADA high for mobility challenged patrons. And then you have here an even higher transaction top where you can clean as well. Look at that beautiful transition. And then you have here the wall protected very beautifully where you can clean. And now we go to another type of spa. You see, again, they decided to go all the way to the floor. But check this out. Check this out. Now they have carpet in the waiting room. It's a spa. Not necessarily they're going to need to mop this floor. But then when it transitions to patient area, here we go. Now you have what we call the hard surface that can be easily cleanable. Another type of healthcare environment where you still bring a lot of creativity, but the key in a project like this is durability. So things are made to last and to be cleaned. And look at that. Another clinic where they chose carpet here, and then it's going to change in the back. Check how important is lighting on a project like this. So this, where people are going to be working, they dropped the light so it gives more illumination to the work surface area. Another great example in this dermatology is environment where we see again the drop for the ADA height and then the transaction counter with space for people to write on it and make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be. Look at that. When you look at environments like this, you might be asking yourselves, how do they keep it clean? It's all about the type of materials it's going to be chosen. In this instance, and that's why I picked this photo, you're seeing wood. Hardly ever you're going to see wood in an environment that is for healthcare. Well, this might be tricky because this is not wood. Sometimes it's what they call the thermofused. It's a piece of plastic that goes into a very, very, very heated oven, and then you will just go and fuse with whatever material you have below, and then it's sealed. Check out the materials that were chosen for the back units. You see here, this is plastic laminate. Hardly ever you're going to see wood. And again, because of the cleanability, and usually to prevent chipping on all of this surface, the edges of it are made with what we call PVC edges to prevent chipping. Okay, so now we spoke about healthcare design. We understood much better on how it works. And we're going to talk about retail design. Okay, so far we saw projects that we had other designers designing, and now I invite you to meet a few projects that I had the pleasure to be involved. And this one is called Dylan's Candy Bar. It's in New York City, in Manhattan. So retail design is one of my favorite type of designs because you can dream. In this case, we could dream big. What do I mean by that? I really mean big. When we try to bring, when you were a child and you go to space, everything looks gigantic to you. Well, that was the idea here. The owner had really the culture of the company in mind. She said, I want the adults to come into my candy store and feel that everything is big. So they're going back to their happy childhood. So things were done to make look like gigantic, including the gigantic candy canes that follow Dylan's Candy Bar in all of her designs. Everything is designed to fit the product. So even the height of the shelves are made to fit a certain type of display. This, for example, is a self-service for candies. Was one of the first candy store where you had the self-service. Then you would come down this space and look at that. You have an idea what that could be? This is acrylic with real candy fused inside the transparent acrylic with LED lights behind it. So when you're coming down, this would change color depending on the season. It could be, I don't know, let's say, for example, purple and orange for Halloween, or it could be green and red for Christmas, and so on and so forth. That would bring people downstairs. But you see how important every single detail is when you are talking about retail design. You think about durability. We were talking about safety. Not that we don't have to think about these items when you talk about retail design, but the focus is a little bit different. We got to think about everything as a full discipline. But here the focus is how to appeal to your customer in a way that they feel the magic, they feel inspired to spend money, and they retain their time in the company, right? In the retail space. Look at that. Even this space was to bring people to an amazing environment where the display units, if you look, was for chocolate. So why don't imagine the space with dripping chocolate from above and below, right in front of the chocolate fudge station? And they needed storage drawers below. So we came up with the idea of having drawers that looked like pieces of unwrapped chocolate. And for the display where they were selling chocolate bars, we had a big chocolate bar on top, of course, with a bite out of it. This is another example for a group called Waffles and Dinges. They started their design in New York. I don't know if you have experienced that before. It's a very interesting story for retail. Let's see, how much time do we have? I guess I have time to share with you this story. How many of you know that in Belgium we have a king? Yes, in Belgium, it's a monarchy, we have a king. And the king of Belgium came to the United States and he said, why are people here calling this a Belgian waffle? This is not Belgian waffle. So he went to his website and in the monarchy and he said, I challenge you, whomever you are, to change what the United States think a Belgian waffle is. And so this wonderful friend of mine, he took the challenge and he got this amount of money from the King of Belgium, and he got a truck, a yellow truck, and went to the streets of Manhattan selling the waffles that he was making out of his grandma's recipe. So one day we sat together and he said, I have the opportunity to be in every single park in New York City. Can you help me with a design? And I believe that retail design is a story to tell. So I told him, I said, if you have a story to tell, let's find an artistic way to sell your ideas. So if you look at this design right here, you see squares, you see rectangles. I said, why don't you inspire your design in PM Mondrian, and you create a moment to tell the story by using this design. And that's how it all started. And this here, it was a Mall of America design where he created this fair ideas if you were in one of those fun fairs. But it started like this. After the truck, he went to the parks. He won a very nice competition to be in every single park in New York City. And that's the waffle truck. You see here, even the crown of the king is there. At the end of the day, this is pulled away from the streets and bring back to the warehouse. Another great example of retail design is what we call vineyard vines. I'm not sure, but I think most of you have seen this logo before, the logo with the little pink whale. So the story of this brand started with Wall Street guys. They wanted to come up with something that would represent their brand properly. So to make the clients fall in love, what the design concept tried to do is to bring them back to this navy environment. So one of the ideas was, why not make the cashier a big boat? And then the light fixtures going right above this big boat could very well be what? Could be what it is inside a ship. Or windows here could look like what they are in a ship. Or you could have floats all around the store, or something that looked like you in a fishing trip with your friends. Everything well thought to make people fall in love with the brand. Maybe now, if you didn't recognize yet, maybe now you can understand better. So details like that, I would love for you to try your best. Remember one of the classes we talk about having your own notebook? So I invite you to go around next trip to the grocery shop. I invite you to take that notebook and walk around, make notes. See, wow, this is the type of lighting they are using here in this retail design. Remember we went through Abercrombie and Fitch, how they didn't have enough light, and how you feel. We write all your feelings. Or when you go to a healthcare facility, write your feelings, how impressive that space was, on how not impressive it was. Another picture of vineyard vine. Just see how different the light is depending on the look you have. Check this one out. This one, you have even a boat hanging in the ceiling as if you were inside the ocean right here with your peers. And it's important, like I said, to have a story to tell. So on the wall, sometimes you're going to see people telling the story of their brands, how they started, or a feature about the products. Nike is doing that right now. If you go to a Nike store in the city, you're going to be able to have name for the new shoes. You're going to have a story on how that shoe was created, or you're going to have characters attached to that product. And sometimes all of those items are incorporated to the architecture surrounding those products. Here we go again to make it look like a full boat. Now, in this photo, if you start being very detail oriented, you're going to go deep into understanding retail design, and I guarantee you it's a lot of fun. Check out this display, for example. What is different about it? Did you notice this rope right in the middle of the review? How interesting is that? How unique does it make this fixture, correct? Now let's go to this bolt. They even give you the name of the brand and the place where this is located. It's always adding a story to tell. Sometimes you see a tagline, so every day should feel this good. So you start buying not only the product, but you buy the culture that is in mind of this brand. So you start going through the store, you see just for tie, you will have a full display created just to sell ties, a full display created just to sell shirts. Then you go to a wall and you have another display created to sell children's outfits. And then you create contrast. For example, the display here is white. You gave a dark tone to make it pop. Imagine if everything here was the same color, this would not pop. Same thing here. Everything's being the same color, this or this would not pop. So these are the details that invite you to start looking around everywhere, but especially in retail where you have people thinking deeply about every single design specifics around the space. Even here, you would recognize something like that if you were by the ocean, correct? And you know, I always talk about the books that I suggest. I heard from Elaine, we all heard from Elaine today that people are asking for these books in our library system, which is great. And as a reminder, even if our local library does not have the book, our Westchester library system is phenomenal in getting the books, and you can put in requests. It's really an amazing tool to acquire knowledge. So use that beautifully. Knowledge is everything. Well, these are the two suggested bibliographies for corporate design. I suggest Designing Commercial Interiors, and this is by Christine. She, along with Elizabeth, they both did an amazing job collecting these unique designs. It's even for you as a curious mind, as we said in the beginning, to enjoy. It's not one of the books that you're going to sit down and read. But contemporary corporate architecture, it brings a vision that for many is very controversial. Yes, it's not for everybody, contemporary corporate architecture, especially because some architects and designers, they do say they don't account the team dynamic properly. It's more about the design, how to make it look very extremely modern, and little about user capabilities. So I invite you to look at this too with very critique eyes behind. Let's talk about now this type of design that is very unique and beautiful to all of us, which is called healthcare design. There are many amazing books, just like corporate, but this too will give you a good background on hospital and healthcare facility design. I bring your attention to this photo. Take a moment to look at it. How many of you went to a hospital and you saw, for example, a fish tank at the entrance, or pieces of art hanging from the ceiling, or plants? All of this is being incorporated along the years to make people less afraid of this very frigid look, very cold look that we used to have in healthcare. And along with this, we have all the colors being part of not only the design, but being part of what people feel. So sometimes you go to a hospital and say, wow, I went to a hospital and it wasn't all blue and white. It was orange, like this one in the future. And they even picking that for the cover of these books. So this is Hospital and Healthcare Facility by Richard Miller, Earl, and J. Todd Robinson. And future healthcare design. You see how I bring one that is a mix of everything and one that is the future. This one is telling you a little bit more about the tendency of making healthcare design look very hospitality. And the more I think about it in my interpretation is because they're understanding what the users are trying to feel when they go to these environments. And that's why it's very different than contemporary architecture. This, a lot of people are critiquing, saying that it's taking too much away from what people want to feel when they go to their office. And then this is going as close as possible to what people want to feel so they're more comfortable to an environment where not necessarily they feel they're safe. Oh, look at that. Elaine reminded us that it's interlibrary loan. It's very good. Thank you, Elaine. Yes, all this system, I invite you, call the library if you're not familiar with that and get familiar. It's a fantastic treasure that we have in our hands. It's truly
so if we
amazing.
just to explain, if we don't have it in the Worcester library system catalog, then we can get it through interlibrary loan from a local college or MYPL. So make the request, and if we can get it, we will.
Yeah, you're amazing. Thank you so much. So two more books that I think we should take a look if we want to dig into what we went through today are about retail design. So Retail Design International by Jones Messedet is a very, very good book. It brings you to international retail design, which is fantastic to compare what goes on across the planet. And then we have a complete guide to designing successful retail stores, store design. And then you ask yourself, I said, why does it say successful retail store? Because a lot of what you see in a retail design has to have human behavior accounted. So for example, there is a saying that says, eye level is buy level. So everything that you can put in a display area that is easy for the human to grasp, that is even to grab right away, chances are they're gonna buy. Or for example, the light intensity, color of the light, what type of floor. I mentioned that before and I'll say that again. When we are as human, when we are walking on a hard surface like this, for example, a solid floor, we tend to walk faster. Then if we transition to carpet, which is what we call soffit floor, we tend to slow down about 30%. The velocity of our speeds is going to slow down. And when we slow down, usually we are calmer, right? We slow down the speed of our heart, and that means calmer. We'll make better decisions on buying. So all of that is taken into consideration when we do retail design. And then here, Jenny's a pro on that already. I invite you to take a photo of this. And if you are watching us on the YouTube channel of the library system, please pause the video right now, take a photo, and visit those websites. It gives you a little bit about store layout design, the psychology of interior design, because it's as we just said, there is a lot that we should learn about human behavior when we design layout, the perfect hospital design, how patients feel. And that's a blog. It's a very interesting blog. This one here, it's another one, a good one about healthcare design. This one about visual merchandising and the three-dimensional brand experience, because it's all about selling a brand, right? And rethinking future, this is a very interesting website about psychology of retail design. In a conclusion, I brought to us these 5 key points. I'm going to read it to you quickly because I know we have a moment for question and answer, but in corporate healthcare and retail design, understanding the consumer habits only makes us a part of commercial design's duties. Architects in this sector, they must also must also know how to best approach design for their client's specific facility type and specific business operations. This includes accommodating the particular equipment, merchandise, and storage needs of the client's business. Think about it next time you go to these spaces. So next key point is accommodating business operations often requires extra infrastructure as well. Architects working on commercial projects must be able to strategically incorporate elevators, parking lots, and other features that would rarely be seen in the residential sphere. Overall, commercial design must account for the way that the client's business functions on a day-to-day basis, and it should enable all business activities not only to be comfortable, but also as efficient as removed in a dental office, as having a tooth removed in a dental office. And corporate healthcare and retail design requires a sharp business sense with an eye for future. Think about that. Materials must be durable, we spoke about it, and resist the test of time. Architects in these sectors must be able to design a facility that will be suitable for many, many, many years to come. They should also spot opportunities to give their clients a competitive edge. In summary, successful commercial designs can adapt to market trends and follow for business growth and allow for business growth. As you know, I always tell what the next class is. Our next class is about code compliance, and we all can use code compliance. Basically, we're going to say what are the New York State codes, what are our local codes, zoning codes, what does it mean, and why we should comply with all of that. And to finalize, I would like to once again thank you who stayed here the entire time very, very much. Special thank you to the entire Takaho Library team who is always doing the best, bringing the best, and to the Westchester County Board of Legislators for making it a true reality for all of us. Knowledge is our lifetime treasure.